a few days pass and I get a call back at, I'm at the Banana Bungalow. Everybody's in the hot tub, like partying, and I get a call, so I run up to my room, and it's Jillian, and she says, "Okay, so this afternoon I wrote your letter to Ram Dass, and now I'm frozen, sitting on my bunk bed, thinking like, okay, and and yeah, she told me that she, he was in his chair up in his study, and she went up when there was a moment and said, like, somebody wrote you a letter, and can I read you a letter? And so she read the letter to him, and she said that he got really quiet and closed his eyes and just listened to her reading the letter. And after she finished reading, she mentioned that he just was very silent and quiet, and she kind of sat in that with him while in his silence. And eventually he opened his eyes, and she showed he wanted to see a picture of me, and so she showed Ram Dass a picture of me. And she said she zoomed in so that he could look in my eyes. And then he said, "I want to meet him." Ram Dass said that about me? It's crazy. So that's the start of, and then there's a story after that, but kind of a different story, maybe. That was kind of,
Yeah. Keep going.
yeah. Well, that's going to be my memoir, which is just sail up. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, nothing was guaranteed, and that was what Jillian told me over the phone. Like, that's so sweet. Ram Dass said he wanted to meet you, like, unbelievable, and my body's vibrating with energy. I'm already, like, something's happening, I can feel, like, the energy flow is just out of control, with excitement and all sorts of things. And, yeah, we pull up to the house, and I'm like, wow, this is Ram Dass' house, he's here, this is amazing. And get brought into the house, meet a bunch of people. There were a lot of people around, but the energy was very quiet. There were people around, but also signs that kind of said respect, the space, and respect the energy in the house. Because where Ram Dass was at with his health, I assumed. And eventually, Moo comes down and says, RD's ready, he's ready for you, RD's ready for you. And I had met so many people that day, I was like, who's RD? Such a innocent young man. Aw, sweetie, come on, let's go up to Ram Dass' room, yeah. And he's like, Ram Dass, and I was like, oh, okay. And, so we floated from there up into Ram Dass' study and around the corner, and plopped me down in front of Ram Dass, and I didn't say anything. He was leaned back and kind of propping his head up so he could see me and smiling, and nothing came to mind. And there didn't need to be. That for me was like the juiciest part. It was just how it felt like those minutes that we spent not talking and just looking at each other and just smiling at each other, and the energy is just through the roof. And then after a couple minutes he goes, "What do you want?" Yeah. Which, for anybody who likes cooking or baking, there's like the timers that you get, and it goes like, ding, and it's like done. In my brain, that's what it did. I was like, but I didn't have a question. I didn't I don't know, there's no questions that I wanted to ask. What could I ask? It's like everything, I was already getting everything that I wanted and I didn't even know that I wanted it. And that's the feeling that I get when I was singing with you this morning. Or when I'm telling the story. Maybe there's like feeling of like, I don't know, some juiciness, I guess you could call it, love or whatever. That was what I was feeling. So I didn't have a question. He said spiritual things, and I thought, hey, I mean, you're Mr. Spiritual. I didn't say this, obviously. All of a sudden I'm getting so cocky. He said spiritual things, and I was like, yeah. So he said, do you know who me and Curly Baba is? And I was like, not as well as I'd like to, I think. That's what I said. And he smiled and he liked that answer. And then he told me, this was a brief period of talking that we had, because with his aphasia, he would get halfway through a sentence and then stop, and we'd be in silence again. And he said, before I met Maharaji, I thought I was the captain of my ship. And after I met Maharaji, he was the captain of my ship. So that blew my mind. And then he said other things, but really what stands out for me from this story is, it was the feeling. Yeah. Because, I'll forget things that he said, but the feeling I'll always remember. And how do I want to end this? Yeah, and I don't know what Dasima and Lakshman, who was one of the caretaker, I guess, on duty that day, thought the meeting. I think maybe they just thought I wanted to come by and just say hi and leave. I don't know if them and Ramdas were on the same page, because, which happens, but Lakshman kept coming in and just checking to see how, after not too long of a time, saying, you have an appointment right away and stuff, and at first it was like, okay, yeah, thanks, and he kept coming into the room every few minutes to say, she's waiting. I wasn't moving. I didn't want to be disrespectful, but I didn't know if I would ever have this, I wasn't going to have this opportunity again. So I was very politely letting Ramdas give me the nod goodbye. But eventually Dasima came into the room and was like, Ramdas, she's waiting, and it's been a long time since she's been here, so we need to have this appointment. And he goes, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm hanging out with Connor here. But he was genuinely you're interrupting this time that we're having, it was so sweet. That was I don't know, that gives you a sense of how present he was with people, that anything outside of what was happening right there was why, stop. I'm trying to be, I don't fully understand that, but that was how I took it. And eventually it was okay, we're transitioning to leaving, but I made sure to stand up and to take his hand, and I was saying, I was just thank you, for everything that I don't even fully understand, but thank you for everything, and I love you. And he was looking at me just like that, and going, I love you too, and we back and forth, I love you too, I love you, it was gives me chills, yeah. Floated back down the steps. Julian stopped chopping whatever she's chopping and comes up to me all excited and goes, so how was it? What was it like? And I was like, oh, and just started crying and just broke down. And it was just the overflow of whatever that, that experience was, just overflowed, and gratitude. And brought me over to the puja table and sat me down in front of the big picture of Maharaji, who's leaning on his hand. And she went right up to it and pointed at him and said, he made this happen. Yeah, he made this happen.